G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, break's over. So obviously just back in the last 24 hours from being over in the UK. It was good. It was good. I had good fun. I enjoyed the Harlem Eubank card. I was at that in York Hall, first ever time being to York Hall, and what a little venue that is. It is a brilliant little venue. You know, I remember Hatman saying he thinks it's the best small hall in Britain. Probably is, because it's a great little venue, and it was a really good undercard. It was a really good card that Harlem Eubank show was. In terms of everything else, obviously I haven't had a chance to do any videos when I was over there. Well, not many anyway. We'll talk about Joshua now in a wee bit. We'll cover what we missed. But I think we need to speak about this particular subject first, which is obviously Amir Khan testing positive for a banned substance, which is known as Ostarine. Now, Ostarine, you may know, or may remember, that is what Lucas Brown tested positive for in the run-up to his fight with Shannon Briggs, which never happened. It's also what Alexander Povetkin tested positive for in his second failed drugs test of 2016. So obviously he failed 2 drug tests going into 2 fights in 2016. The first was with Deontay Wilder. That was a substance called meldonium. And then the WBC couldn't accurately state whether he willingly ingested it or not, because it came back clean in a couple of tests and one didn't come back clean. So they basically gave him the benefit of the doubt, and they said, right, we'll fight Bermane Stiverne, who was next in line for the interim title, and then you fight Deontay Wilder next year. That's what they agreed to. It was going to fight in Russia. It was going to happen at the end of December, and they actually weighed in. Remember this, they weighed in, and then on the morning, I think it was the morning anyway, either the morning or the evening of the fight, or the evening before I should say, it came back that Povetkin tested positive for Ostarine. Now, I don't really know exactly what type of drug Ostarine is. I mean, obviously it's a performance enhancer, but Povetkin, I will never forget him, because obviously he fought Johan Duhaupas that night, which was a complete farce. I mean, Johan Duhaupas got horribly knocked out. He didn't even have a pair of boxing boots. They gave him a pair of amateur shorts and a pair of running shoes, and he was way out of shape. It was an absolute joke. He got knocked out badly, 6 or 7 rounds, very badly. And Alexander Povetkin, not before or since have I ever seen him looking as chiseled as he did in that fight. We go back and look at that fight, and Povetkin fought Rudenko in his next fight, which was July. So December 2016 to July 2017. It's not that much of an amount of time. And look at the difference in physique. I mean, Povetkin looked absolutely jacked to high hell in there against Johan Duhaupas. And his next fight against Rudenko, following on, because obviously he got banned by the WBC, but he could still compete, obviously, with other sanctioning bodies. And against Rudenko in his next fight, he looked way fleshier. Like, he wasn't out of shape per se, but compared to what he was, it was night and day. So this was found by UCAT, following Amir Khan's defeat to Kell Brook last year, and has now been banned from boxing for 2 years, which is completely irrelevant because Amir Khan has already retired. So essentially it doesn't mean anything, realistically. I mean, I'm reporting on it, and, you know, obviously he's been found out, but, like, it's over a year later. I mean, it's a year and 2 months nearly. Now, Amir Khan refuted these claims. He says, I've never cheated. I'm a retired fighter. You can see by I do find this bit amusing. You can see by my performance versus Kell Brook, I lost. If I went in there and knocked Brook out, it's a different story. I never cheated in my life. Ben Shalom went on to say that he only found out about the Amir Khan positive drugs test when it was broke on social media. So wasn't even informed by UCAD. Crazy. And again, UCAD have a history, and I do find it ironic that it would be Amir Khan, Kell Brook, with UCAD withholding certain things. I'm not going to go in further on that. Well, Amir Khan, we know about this now. I'm just going to leave it there. But apparently Ben Shalom was only found out on social media and didn't know anything about it despite promoting the fight. He added the British Boxing Board of Control, Rob Smith, told him that he only found out that day which I believe is not actually true, because if I go here, Rob Smith was on TalkSport, he revealed that they did in fact know, so he lied to Ben Shalom, they did in fact know about the Amir Khan positive drugs test at the time Khan did, following the Kell Brook defeat last year. Obviously, everything to do with UKAD is private and confidential, which is how it should be. Right, okay. On if boxing is gutting due to drug testing, it's not the gutting. I'm not being funny. Look at all the fights taking place. We're going through a bit of a difficult time. It's not due to the board, it's due to other people's behaviour. Right, well, I guess you could say that it's a good thing in one sense that these guys are getting popped regardless of the fact that it's coming out a year later. But lest we forget, right, Amir Khan originally, I believe, was in, or maybe he did invoke his rematch clause to face Kell Brook and then decided better of it. Now, I suspect that that might have been down to the fact that this positive drug test came out and he obviously said, okay, well, look, it's not going to happen, so I may as well retire. Because even if he was juiced up to the eyeball, which probably was, then, you know, as he said there, it really didn't affect his performance, didn't help him. Probably the best example of someone being juiced up to the eyeballs and it not really having any impact on them whatsoever will be Larry Olubamiwo. I think, didn't his house get raided or something? Was that him? His house got raided because he had so many PEDs and stuff like that in it. And he was an area English level fighter, and he was still when he was taking PEDs. There is a statement from Kell Brook. Where is it? Which I just found ironic. Kell Brook on Amir Khan's drug ban says, I heard about it today. When everyone else heard, I'm disgusted. It's been over a year since we boxed. It makes me feel sick. I've got 3 beautiful kids. He's gone in there to try and hurt me. It's an effing joke. It could be a completely different story. I could be in a wheelchair now with him destroying my life or killing me. Because I won, people are going to forget about it. He could legally have killed me. He needs to pay. It's going to tarnish his career terribly. He's gone in there and got an absolute pasting. He were on the drugs and still took a massive hiding. He's got to live with that for the rest of his life, and he's got to live with cheating. This is the Kell Brook who wanted to fight Conor Benn, having failed 2 drugs tests. I'm just going to chuck that one in there. So the whole Amir Khan, look, at the end of the day, he's retired, so it's not really going to affect him that badly, you know, because he's not going to fight again. So that 2-year ban is really going to do absolutely nothing. I mean, Amir Khan, you know, I remember when he retired, I was saying, I'll miss Amir Khan because we won't get any more of these things popping up. Well, obviously not. Amir Khan is still sticking around in that regard. So he fails the drug test, another positive test. But you can't hold it for this long. They've done this before. They've done this with Tyson Fury. Without going into it too much, I do know of fighters where fighters have served a ban and we still don't know that they've served the ban. I do know that. And I think I've spoken about that, not naming them for obvious reasons. I don't want to get a lawsuit slapped on me. But that was an open secret a couple of years ago. I remember a few people telling me this. Why the need for such secrecy? And, you know, some people would say, oh, it's the promoter. I mean, Ben Shalom is saying that this is the first he's heard of it. You know, do I trust Ben Shalom? Not really, but we got to take, I suppose, his word for face value this time, because, you know, you can't have a track history of it. It's quite terrible, really, the way you can do this. You know, the fact that they do keep this in for so long before launching an investigation. And then as well as that, like, if you think of it like this, right? Say Amir Khan wanted to fight again. Like, let's say Amir Khan was 29 years old and he'd tested positive, he'd lost, he'd taken a year off. Well, you could turn around and say, well, he's got another 2 years to go. Not necessarily. They'll just backdate that. You know, so if he doesn't fight now until February next year, he could fight March next year. There you go. There's 2 years off. He's been banned for one of those 2 years, essentially, because they'll just backdate the ban. So the way you can do things is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The WBA have officially ordered Alexander Usyk to defend his world titles against Daniel Dubois. Parties have 30 days until May the 2nd to negotiate purse bids. Not the fight I want to see. Obviously, as you know, I'd rather be talking about Undisputed. I'd rather be talking about Fury versus Usyk rather than Dubois versus Usyk. For Frank Warren, it's a win-win because he promotes Fury, promotes Joyce, and he promotes Dubois. So either way, one of his guys is going to get a crack in there, and if one of his guys loses, another guy can have a crack, so on and so forth. Or both of his guys can fight. He could have Fury versus Joyce, which I think he's trying to do. So for Frank Warren, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a win-win for him. In terms of Dubois versus Alexander Usyk, I mean, the only thing you could say that maybe in Daniel Dubois, I'm not even want to say favour, but one thing you could maybe say is that maybe Usyk won't be up for this fight like he would be others, because at the end of the day, it does sound like Alexander Usyk wants that Tyson Fury fight. Pretty much that's the only fight he wants. So for him to go into a Dubois fight, maybe he won't be fully up for it. Maybe he'd be just thinking, do I really want to? Do I want to train as hard for this? Maybe that's the only kind of thing you could really say for Dubois, because other than that, I think he's going to get soundly beaten, probably stopped, because I just think Dubois, there was too many red flags in that Kevin Lerena fight, way too many. So not the fight we want to see, but we'll wait and see how that develops. Eddie Hearn has stated that the general feeling is that Anthony Joshua needs another fight in July before jumping in with Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. I concur with that, maybe even 2 fights. He's mentioned Dillian Whyte, Otto Dillian and Joe Joyce. Right, well, Joe Joyce, I wouldn't be putting him in there with Joe Joyce. Whyte and Dillian, out of the two, I'd put him in there with Dillian Whyte, because I think he still steamrolls Dillian Whyte now at this stage. I think that Dillian Whyte made much harder work with Jermaine Franklin than Anthony Joshua did, and that was a worse Jermaine Franklin, let's be honest with you. I mean, Franklin against Joshua came in much better shape. Joshua was clinching an awful lot in that fight, he really was, but Joshua was still, apart from the confidence being not quite there and him unwilling to let shots go on the inside, for the most part he did what he needed to do. He kept Franklin in his place. Franklin did have success in there, don't get me wrong, he did, and the commentary team was absolutely abysmal from the zone. It was horrific, horrendous, disgraceful commentary. Franklin did some good work in there, he did, but for the most part it was Joshua in control. Having said that, from what I've seen in there against Franklin, there's no way in hell he needs to be in there with Dubois. Maybe even Dubois. You probably could get him in there with a Dubois at this stage, because Dubois, I mean, God knows. But no way you put him in with a Joyce. No way you put him in with a Wilder. No way you put him in with a Fury. A Usyk, we obviously know. So in terms of who I would put him in there with, I put him in there with someone like Dillian Whyte, someone who you've already beaten him before. Yes, he's improved, but you have as well. And whilst there's an argument to be made that maybe Joshua is regressing a bit, there's an argument there. I'm not saying it's true. Dillian Whyte, it's there for all to see he's regressed. Physically and in terms of, punch resistance wise. That chin is not what it was when they fought way back in 2015. So against Dillian Whyte, he poses that risk, obviously, because he does have good power, especially in the left hook. But realistically, if you can neutralise the left hook, then you're in for an easy night. And you could look devastating against Dillian Whyte. Franklin takes a pretty good shot, to be fair. Dillian Whyte is open to the uppercut. The punch that Joshua was very unwilling to throw, interestingly, against Jermaine Franklin. And when he did, he had a bit of success with it. Otto Dillian, again, I would be picking Anthony Joshua over him, certainly, but he's awkward. And I think with a lot of people, they watched the Joshua fight on Saturday night, and maybe it wasn't the fact they weren't impressed, more so than the fact that it was a bit laboured, it was a bit dull. You're going to get much of the same with Otto Dillian. It's not going to be an entertaining fight. It's not going to be a spectacle from start to finish. It's not going to be rock'em sock'em robots or trading knockdowns, etc. He's a guy who's going to be somewhat difficult to look good against, but Joshua should win. I should win comfortably, but do you want him to look devastating? If you do, then I would be heavily advising you put him in there with Dillian Whyte, because I think he will look good against Dillian Whyte, truth be told. Now, Lawrence Coley will defend his WBO Cruiserweight World title against Chris Billam-Smith on May the 27th at Bournemouth's Vitality Stadium. Now, this is a very, very quick turnaround for Lawrence Coley, following on from that debacle against David Light. Him against Billam-Smith is an interesting one, because up until very, very recently, these were stablemates. They're both trained by Shane McGuigan, were both trained by Shane McGuigan. Obviously, Billam-Smith is now a Coley, is no longer. He's with Sugar Hill Stewart. They would obviously know each other. Now, here's the one worry I have for this fight. It's the one worry. there is the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. It's not always the case. You'll often have times where you get two fighters who would have been sparring partners at one stage, and they fight, and it's all action. A good example would be Sean Porter versus Keith Thurman. The two of them sparred for a long time, and when they went and fought in 2016, it was one of the fights of the year in 2016. It was a brilliant fight. But then you have other times where both guys know each other very well. Just thinking off the top of my head, a good example would be Joseph Parker, Razvan Kajanu. Joseph Parker is leagues and leagues and leagues above Razvan Kajanu in terms of skills, ability, etc. But when they fought in 2017, they'd been sparring partners for, I think actually, obviously Hughie Fury was the original opponent. Kajanu was brought in as a sparring partner, so he knew what Parker was going to do. Parker knew what Kajanu was going to do, and it was just horrible for 12 rounds. That's the risk you have. And Lawrence Coley, he cannot afford another dull, lackluster performance, because that's two on the bounce now. Cieslak was a poor performance. The David Light fight, it's not a good look when it's your first fight on a new platform and people are walking out. Ben Shalom invested so much money in Coley. He's left Eddie Hearn with animosity, and Eddie Hearn, I'm sure, was giggling his little heart out the whole way through that fight because Coley stunk the joint out. Against Billum Smith, he's in the Vitality Stadium. He's in Billum Smith's home of Bournemouth. So, and this is a big show for them. This is a Coley straight in, big fight in a stadium, Vitality Stadium. He has to try and bring the action. He needs to try and make this fight entertaining. He needs to try and make this a good performance, as does Billum Smith. If a Coley goes in there and starts holding Billum Smith incessantly, I don't think he'll get away with it if he's fighting in Billum Smith's hometown as much as he does maybe in Manchester and London. But we'll have to wait and see. I worry about that because they've been sparring partners, because they've known each other for so long, that we run the risk of having a pretty dull, lackluster fight. In terms of May 27th, I hate it when this happens. I really do. I don't like it. But we have 3 shows with 3, on paper, decent main events all on the one day. I really don't like it when that happens. I really hope maybe one of them could maybe start early. Maybe they'll do Luis Alberto Lopez versus Michael Conlan early in the day, maybe a 3 o'clock start, finished by about 7, half 7, because they have that fight on. They've Lara versus Wood 2 in Manchester. Interesting, that's in Manchester of all places. What do they do that? Nottingham, and obviously they have Lawrence Cody versus Billum Smith. Now, out of those 3 fights, the one I would want to watch the most would probably be Lara versus Wood, because the first fight was good, and I think the second fight is going to be good. I don't trust the Coley against Billum Smith. Conlan versus Lopez is an interesting one. I guess it really depends on the undercard. What's the undercard going to look like? How is the strength and depth going to look on the undercard? That's going to be the interesting one for these fights. Now, I like Lee Wood versus Mauricio Lara. The first fight was going in Wood's favour. He was doing very well until he got caught with a left hook. It's going to be interesting to see how he looks in this fight. It's obviously in Manchester, so it's not in his home of Nottingham. It's Manchester and Nottingham. Nottingham is more central England, and Manchester is more northwest, isn't it? Are they far? I know Nottingham to London is not a million miles, but how far is Nottingham to Manchester? I'm pretty sure Nottingham would be kind of there, Manchester would be there, so it probably wouldn't be that far. So I wonder how many of those Nottingham fans are going to travel up for it. Good fight. Lopez versus Conlan. I'd be favouring Lopez in this fight, truth be told. I think Conlan, you cannot judge where he is based upon those last 2 performances, because he was in there with absolute puddings. So we'll wait and see how that goes. Now, I hope to God they're not teasing with this. I hope to God they're not teasing me with this, because this right here, everything, I am crossing everything. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight title is reportedly set for June 17th in Las Vegas. It's claimed they're going to make the announcement on the Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia card. If they do, oh my flippin' God, I have wanted this fight, and you know me, how much I want this fight. I want this fight more than Fury Usyk. Seriously. I love this fight so much. I really, really, really really want this fight. Oh my good lord, Spence versus Crawford. There was all this talk of Spence going to 154 to fight Keith Thurman, even though they're both 147 pounders, and I knew if he went to 154, well, that's it. He's never come back to 147. This is possibly both guys' last fight at 147. I hope they get it over the line. I really, really do. I hope that whatever issues happened last year that stopped this fight happening are well and truly gone now. Please, God, let this fight happen. June 17th. Oh my God, please tell me this fight is going to happen. I really, really hope so. Oscar Valdez, Adam Lopez 2 on the undercard of Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko. Interesting. I'm looking forward to Loma versus Devin. I think that fight's going to be brilliant. I'm also hearing that it's pretty much a done deal now that we're going to get on June the 3rd Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn over in the UAE. There's talk of Justice Hooney fighting on the undercard over there. Well, that's going to be interesting. So the UAE are the ones who are going to be hosting Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. Again, I say I don't know. Like, in the UK, that fight's big. Is it as big now as it was back then? Objectively speaking, I'd say probably yeah, because most of the casuals just hear Ben versus Eubank. They won't even acknowledge the fact that Conor Benn has failed 2 drug tests. The hardcore fans and the casuals who be more kind of in tune with boxing, yeah, they won't be happy. We won't be happy. We'll be like, what the hell? What's up with this? But most casuals be just like, oh, Ben versus Eubank? Oh, they're getting it back now? You know, Conor Benn's failed 2 drugs test. No, he hasn't. I haven't heard anything about that. Do you follow boxing news? Well, no. You know, those kinds. So, look, in the UAE, will that do as well over there? I doubt it. You know, travelling over there. Joshua and Usyk, you know, they have the fanfare over there. Joshua's a much bigger, even still is a much bigger name. They can bring the fanfare over. Could Ben Eubank? I doubt it, but you never know. You never know. Now, to finish up with this, right? We'll finish up with this. Now, Ellie Scottney strikes me as a very, very nice kid. Very cool girl. Spoke with her on Twitter a few times. Seems a genuine soul. And apparently she just wanted to fight on Katie Taylor's undercard. And the icing on the cake was it's going to be for a world title. So, delighted for her. Now, she released a statement yesterday saying, I am deeply disappointed to say that I am here and I will be removed from the May 20th card in Dublin due to Chantel Cameron and her management insisting to her promoter Eddie Hearn that I'm not allowed to be on the undercard because of who trains me, being Shane McGuigan. This is despite having fought on 2 cards together before with no problem whatsoever after my world title had been announced on a huge night globally for women's boxing. My dream is now being taken away from me by a fellow fighter dictating terms and making unreasonable demands to my promoter. I cannot describe how heartbroken I am. Now, Chantel Cameron released a lengthy statement, and I'm just calling BS on it. I did read it. I'm not going to read it all here. She's contradicting herself. You know, she's talking. Basically, she got a lot of flack for this, right? Because, you know, she was trained by McGuigan at one stage. She's now trained with Jamie Moore. Followed the Carl Frampton method, actually. McGuigan then to Moore. And she's basically saying that, you know, she's playing the MH card, as a lot of people do nowadays. What really irks me about that one is that a lot of times when people play that card, they're dealing with a lot of backlash. And Cameron dictating this term, saying that Ellie Scottney, who's done nothing to Chantel Cameron, all she wants to do is fight on the card of someone who she idolises for a world title, now can't do it because Chantel Cameron has an issue with who's training him, and she comes out and plays the MH card, despite the fact that she's probably going to put Ellie Scottney through a lot of MH issues, because you're going to absolutely devastate the girl. You speak about trying to bring women, you know, empower these women, and you've literally just taken the opportunity from a fellow woman who's, 7 years your junior away, and yet you're going to try and play the victim. And the reason why I don't like people using that card is because MH, we all know what that stands for, is a very, very real thing. A lot of people do suffer from it. A lot of people, a lot of genuine souls out there really do suffer from it and really do have a hard time. And they don't use it to excuse bad behaviour. So often in society now, when someone is behaving badly, whenever they've had a lot of backlash on something, they come out, they make a video or they make a statement and they pull that in there, and it takes away from the people who really do have that issues. Pierre Fury was speaking about this. A lot of them are pushed to one side because someone who says, you know, I don't want you on this card because of this, they get the backlash. Oh yeah, now I've got that problem. And all of a sudden you have these absolute wet wipes. Oh, we're so sorry. Oh, how could we? Yeah, see ya, Ellie. Yeah, bye-bye. See ya. Yeah, we don't care about you now. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour by Chantel Cameron. Disgraceful. That's what I got to say on that. So I'll leave it there. And yeah, I'll leave it with that. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. We're back. I don't know if I'll get a chance to go live this week. Might get a chance to go live this weekend, but not this week. So we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you can. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. As always, thank you to the Hit Company for sponsoring this video. For now, I'll talk to you. Peace.